He slid the paper across the kitchen table, as if it were nothing more than a receipt from the gas station. Sign this, the house is mine now. I stared at the words printed in cold black ink. My son's handwriting filled the signature line. Already prepared, waiting only for my name. For a moment I could not breathe. The room seemed to tilt. This house was not just walls and a roof. It was 40 years of my life with Harold. Every brick carried the weight of his hands, every nail the sound of his hammer. We had fought for it together, 25 years of mortgage payments, 3 jobs for him, side jobs for me. Nights when we ate potatoes 3 ways because we could not afford meat. Mornings when I left for work before sunrise so the bank would not take it from us. And now my own son looked at me with a flat expression, the paper between us like a blade. Just sign it, Mom, he said. You do not need the stress. The house should be mine. The house should be his. As if I were already unnecessary. That night after he left, I walked through the house room by room, touching the walls as if they might vanish. The kitchen still smelled faintly of lemon oil from the rag I used that morning. The tile floor was chipped near the sink, a scar from when Harold dropped the cast iron pan the week he was laid off in 1987. We could not afford to replace it, so we lived with that chip for decades. I ran my foot over it now, remembering his shame that day, and how I told him it did not matter as long as we still had the house. Upstairs, I lingered in the hallway where we had marked the children's heights in pencil. Dates written carefully beside each line. David, 4 feet 6 inches, April 1981. Sarah, 5 feet 1 inch, June 1984. Those marks had survived wallpaper changes, paint jobs, even a roof leak. They were the truest history of our family. If the house left my hands, who would care enough to protect them? I stood in our old bedroom, my hands resting on the oak dresser Harold had saved for 6 months to buy me as an anniversary gift. The mirror still caught the light from the street lamp outside, the same way it had on the night we carried our first baby through the door. I could see my reflection now, 68 years old, hair thin, skin lined, eyes hollowed with years of work. I looked like a tenant in my own home, about to be evicted by blood. The memories came in waves, steady and unstoppable. The first winter in the house, when the furnace broke and Harold borrowed space heaters from the neighbors so the children would not freeze. The spring we planted lilacs along the back fence, dirt under our fingernails, laughter spilling out even though our arms ached. The years we sat at the kitchen table after midnight, bills spread out, every paycheck already spoken for. I used to sew clothes for extra money, hemming skirts, mending coats, even stitching uniforms for the boys at the hardware store. Harold delivered newspapers before dawn, then went straight to the factory. We gave every ounce of ourselves to keep the bank satisfied. I remembered the day we made the final payment. June 14, 2000. Harold brought home a bottle of cheap champagne, and we drank it from coffee mugs because the children had broken the last of the glasses. He kissed me on the forehead and said, "We did it, Martha. They can never take this from us now. Never take this from us." I whispered those words to the empty room and felt a sharp pain in my chest. They could take it. They could strip it from me as if all those years had been nothing but dust. I walked back downstairs and sat in Harold's armchair, the fabric worn thin where his elbows used to rest. Outside, the wind rattled the porch swing. I thought of the neighbors, how Mrs. Kelly from next door had leaned across the fence last week and said with a pitying smile, "You must be lonely in that big house all by yourself. Maybe your son will take it over soon." At the time I had brushed it off. Now her words sounded like prophecy. Unnecessary. That was the word that would not leave me. When Harold died, people said I was strong for keeping the house. They said it was good to have roots, good to be surrounded by memories. I believed them. I thought the house gave me purpose. But now I saw how easily others could twist it, how my son could turn my home into nothing but property, a prize to be transferred like money in a bank account. I sat there until the clock struck midnight. My son's words echoed through me. "Sign this, the house is mine now." The house was more than walls, more than land. It was my proof of life. And now they told me I was no longer needed. I pressed my palms against the chair arms, steadying myself. The silence of the house was heavy, but I would not let it crush me. I would hold every memory, every sacrifice as a shield. I whispered aloud into the dark room, as if Harold were sitting beside me. "They say I am unnecessary, but this house is still mine. A week passed. I kept expecting my son to return with another paper, another demand, but the days stayed quiet. I told myself perhaps he had reconsidered. Perhaps blood still held some meaning. Then on Sunday afternoon the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there he was, my son, with his wife beside him. She held a bakery box, the kind with white string tied across the top. They both smiled too broadly, like children rehearsing politeness. "Mom," he said brightly, "we thought we would come by in peace." His wife added, "We brought you a cake. Your favorite, lemon." They stepped inside before I could answer, carrying the sweetness of buttercream like a peace offering. He set the cake on my kitchen table, the same table where he had pushed the paper toward me days earlier. "We want everything to go smoothly," my son said, smoothing his shirt sleeve. "There is no need for arguments. We will handle all the paperwork for you. You do not want problems, right?" I sat down slowly, my hands folded in my lap. The shift in tone was jarring. Only days ago, his eyes had been cold, demanding. Now, he spoke as if I were fragile, someone to be coaxed into agreement with sugar and smiles. His wife cut the cake neatly, placing slices on my old china plates. "We just want what is best for everyone," she said softly, as if reading lines from a script. "It will make things easier. Less stress for you." Easier. Less stress. I watched the fork gleam in her hand and thought of the years I had carried real weight. 3 jobs, Harold's night shifts, the worry of unpaid bills. Not once had anyone offered to take that burden from me. But now, with the house fully mine, suddenly they wanted to help. I did not touch the cake. Instead, I studied their faces. My son's smile did not reach his eyes. His wife's hands trembled slightly as she placed the plate in front of me. The performance was practiced but not perfect. I thought of Harold again. He had always distrusted false sweetness. "If someone brings cake with paperwork," he used to joke, "eat nothing until you read every line." They stayed for less than an hour. They talked about weather, neighbors, small things. Each sentence circled back gently toward the house. My son said, "It would be a relief to know things were settled." His wife added, "Imagine how peaceful you would feel with no responsibilities." When they left, I carried the untouched cake to the counter and untied the string. The lemon smell rose sharp and bright. I cut one slice just to taste. It was too sweet, the frosting heavy, clinging to my tongue like something meant to smother. I pushed the plate away. Their visit had left a heavier taste than sugar. That night, I sat in the quiet house. I could almost hear Harold's voice in the walls. "Do not be fooled, Martha. Smiles can be knives." That night, after the cake visit, I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. My son's words kept circling in my head. "We will handle the paperwork for you. You do not want problems, right?" It was not the words themselves but the tone. As if I were a burden to be managed. As if I were a patient who needed to be soothed into compliance. I turned on my side and looked at the empty space where Harold once slept. 40 years of his steady breathing had filled this room, and now it was only me. I rose before dawn and went to the attic. Dust rose in the beam of my flashlight as I opened the old cedar chest we had kept tucked away. Inside were Harold's things, folders of bills, union notices, tax receipts, and letters he had written over the years. He had always been meticulous, filing everything by year. His handwriting was neat, block letters formed with a steady hand. I pulled out a smaller box at the bottom, one I had not touched in years. Inside were envelopes, each marked with a date. Some were short notes he had written to me before leaving for night shifts. Others were longer letters he wrote during difficult times. I sat cross-legged on the attic floor and began to read. One letter stopped me cold. It was dated March 14, 1999, just 1 year before we made the last payment on the house. The paper was yellowed, but his handwriting was strong. "Martha, if anything happens to me before this mortgage is finished, I want you to know what we built was not just wood and brick. It is our blood, our sweat, our years. This house must stay in our blood. Never give it to outsiders. Promise me you will protect it. Harold." I pressed the paper to my chest. His words reached across time, steady and clear. Never give it to outsiders. My son's wife's face flashed before me, her smile as she set the cake on my table, Her careful words about peace and less stress. Outsiders. That was exactly what she was. I stayed in the attic until the first light of morning touched the window. For the first time in weeks I felt clarity. The confusion, the guilt, the fear. They all settled into something solid. That day, when my son called to check in, I kept my voice even. "Mom, did you think about the papers?" "Yes," I said. And my answer is no. There was silence on the line. Then his voice sharpened. "Mom, you do not understand. We will sue. We will tell the court you are incompetent. People already say you are losing your mind. Do you want the neighbors talking even more?" I felt the words hit me, but they did not wound me. Instead, they strengthened me. "My mind is perfectly clear," I said. "And my signature will not be on your paper." He exhaled loudly, frustrated. "You are making this harder than it has to be." "Harder for whom?" I asked. He hung up without answering. That evening, as I watered the lilacs by the fence, Mrs. Kelly leaned over, her eyes curious. "I heard you are having trouble with your son. People say you are confused about the house." The gossip had already spread. The words stung, but Harold's letter was still folded in my apron pocket, a shield I carried with me. I touched it and reminded myself, never give it to outsiders. I stood straighter and looked at her calmly. "I am not confused, Mrs. Kelly. I know exactly what I am doing." Inside, I placed Harold's letter in a new folder marked House Protection. I set it on the kitchen counter where I could see it every day. From now on, every decision I made would begin with that promise. The house was not just shelter. It was the record of our lives. And I would not surrender it. Not to pressure, not to gossip, not even to the child I had raised if he stood against me. For the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully, Harold's voice steady in my mind. "Promise me you will protect it." The morning after I told him no, the phone began its work. At 8:12 a.m., my son David called. I let it ring twice to steady my breath. "Mom," he said, voice clipped, "we need to resolve this today." "My answer is the same," I replied. "No." A pause, then the practice concern. "You are making impulsive choices. Sarah is worried. The neighbors say you leave lights on all night. This looks like decline." "I keep the lights on when I read," I said. "You know I read late." "Mom, listen. We will file for guardianship if we have to. It is better if you sign." The words landed like cold rain. Guardianship. I pictured my own son arranging my life with forms and signatures, as if I were an appliance that needed repairing. "I am not signing," I said. "And I will meet you only with a witness present." He hung up without goodbye. By noon the story had already traveled. Mrs. Kelly's cousin, who works part-time at the pharmacy, told the cashier I had shouted at the mailman. I had not spoken to the mailman in 3 days. The butcher on Maple Avenue greeted me with careful kindness, as if I might forget my order halfway through. The rumor moved through the neighborhood like a draft under a door. Old Martha has lost her mind. She does not trust her own children. At 2:30 p.m., an email arrived from David's address. The attachment was a new document labeled Interim Property Custody Agreement. I read every line slowly. Section 2. 1. Transfer of primary residence title to David R. Martin for safekeeping. Section 4. 6. Grant of power for sale if necessary to cover medical needs. There was no cap, no condition, just a blank permission tucked into legal words. At 3:05 p.m., he texted, "Please sign before 6 p.m. We already scheduled a notary for tonight." I did not reply. I sat at the kitchen table with Harold's letter in front of me. This house must stay in our blood. Never give it to outsiders. The line steadied my pulse. Outsiders included anyone who treated my life's work like a formality, even if that person shared my blood. At 5:12 p.m., the doorbell rang. I did not open it. Through the glass I saw David on the porch with his wife. She carried a slim black folder and wore a calm expression that did not match the tightness in her jaw. He called through the door. "Mom, we brought a notary. This is the simplest way." From behind him, the notary lifted a small seal press, an object meant for finality. I opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. "You will not come in," I said. "You will not bring papers into my house." "Mom," he said softly, Do not make this harder than it has to be. Harder for whom? I asked. His wife tried a different angle. We can avoid court. People will talk. You do not want trouble, right? I let the silence answer. After a minute, they left, their footsteps heavy on the porch boards Harold replaced in 1994. One plank at a time after work, the two of us passing nails and iced tea between us like a ritual. That night I wrote my own list, the kind that calms my mind. House records to locate. Deed 1979, mortgage schedule 1975 to 2000, tax receipts, all years, insurance renewals, property survey 1986, Harold's union letters. I added a note to myself. Call attorney Tuesday 9 a.m. The next day brought the whispers closer. Mr. Boyd, who mows 2 doors down, raised a hand and then lowered it without speaking. The mailman handed me a certified letter but did not meet my eyes. Inside was a notice of intent from a firm I did not recognize. Williston and Pike Family Counsel. The sentences wore the same tone as my son. We urge voluntary cooperation to prevent a guardianship petition under Section 18-3. Your refusal may be construed as incapacity. Kindly respond within 72 hours. I placed the letter under Harold's and looked out the window. Wind moved through the lilacs, the bushes we had bought with a layaway receipt dated April 2, 1982. $11.49 per plant. 5 plants. Final payment May 7th. I had kept that slip in a recipe book for decades. It was proof that small things, paid in parts, could become a hedge that guarded a home. At 10:17 a.m. I called my daughter. Sarah has a voice like her father, plain and steady. David says you are confused, she began carefully. He says you forgot the stove on. I boiled potatoes for lunch, I said. I turned off the burner at 12:40. The timer is still on the counter. Silence. Then, Mom, I do not want conflict. Then stay out of it, I said, not unkindly. This is between me and the person asking me to sign away my life. That evening David tried warmth. He arrived with groceries and a smile that belonged to his boyhood. Let me put these away, Mom, he said, stepping inside as if we had agreed. He moved easily, opening cabinets, locating bowls as if to remind me of shared history. At the table he placed a single sheet. No folder this time, just the demand dressed down. It is simple, he said. You sign, I protect. If something happens to you, I can act without delay. You do not have to worry. I am not worried, I said. His smile thinned. You should be. I folded my hands. David, listen to me. I will not sign. If you bring more papers, I will not read them. If you bring more people, I will not let them in. If you threaten court, I will answer there. My answer does not change. His nostrils flared, the same way they did when he was 7 and his kite tore against the fence. People think you are ungrateful, he said. After everything we have done. What have you done? I asked, genuinely curious. He blinked. We visit. We check in. You bring papers, I said. You bring plans for my house. He pushed back his chair so hard it scraped the floor. Fine. We will say you are incompetent. That is what happens to stubborn old people. It will be quick if you do not fight. I stood, feeling a surprising calm. My money is off the table, I said evenly. So is my house. He laughed once, a small ugly sound. You think you can stand alone? I have stood alone before, I said. I know how. After he left, the quiet returned, thicker than before. I washed the 2 plates he had moved without eating and wiped the table. Then I took out the folder I had marked house protection and added new pages. The letter from Williston and Pike, a list of calls with dates and times, a printed transcript of his text messages from the week, 8:15 a.m. Please sign today, 3:05 p.m. Notary at 6, 7:42 p.m. Court is next. I wrote in blue ink along the margin. Record everything. Keep copies. On Wednesday, the rumors sharpened. In line at the bakery, I heard my name followed by a whisper that sounded like pity and triumph mixed together. She does not trust her own children. She is hoarding the house. She will fall and break a hip and then what? I bought a half loaf and left without the change. On the sidewalk, Mrs. Kelly caught my arm. People would help you if you let them, she said. Your son is trying. I removed her hand gently. He is trying to move me out, I said. There is a difference. That afternoon, an alert pinged my phone. Someone had attempted to access my online property tax account from an unrecognized device. 2:23 p.m. IP ending in 44. I wrote it down. At 2:40, a second alert. Password reset requested. I changed the password and added the page to my folder, printing the notices with the timestamp visible. By evening, the threats had shifted to persuasion again. David's wife called voice smooth. Martha, this is exhausting for everyone. Imagine how peaceful it would be to let us handle the paperwork. We could list the house for you if you prefer a smaller place. I prefer this place, I said. It fits my life. There are good communities for seniors, she continued. With activities. With supervision. I do not require supervision, I said. Long pause. You are making David look like a bad son. He does that himself, I said, and ended the call. That night, I opened Harold's letter once more. I placed it beside a copy of our deed. Recorded March 12, 1979, Book 212, page 84. I traced the dated ink with my finger. The paper felt thin but firm, the way truth often feels, modest but unyielding. I imagined Harold at the table, grease still under his nails from the factory, telling me the numbers again. Down payment $6,800, interest 9.25%. First payment due April 1st. Last payment June 1st, 2000. 25 years. Our years. On Thursday morning I phoned an attorney whose name I found in a file of Harold's Union newsletters. Elaine K. Barber, Property and Estates. The receptionist gave me an appointment for Friday at 10 a.m. I wrote it on an index card and taped it to the refrigerator door where I would not miss it. David arrived unannounced at 11:30 a.m. carrying another folder. We can do this the easy way, he said, stepping into the kitchen. This is my house, I said, keeping my voice low. You do not enter without permission. He stopped, startled, as if the floor had shifted beneath him. I am trying to save you from embarrassment. I am past embarrassment, I said. You have taken care of that. His eyes hardened. By Saturday we file. Neighbors will know. Church will know. Sarah will not stand with you. Saturday is a fine day for filing, I said. Wear a good coat. The clerk's office is cold. He stared at me, searching for weakness. When he did not find it, he aimed lower. Dad would have trusted me. I looked him straight on. Your father left me a charge, I said. I intend to keep it. He slammed the folder on the table, then gathered it up again, uncertain, and left. The house held its breath after the door closed. The refrigerator hummed. The porch swing creaked once in a stray gust. I sat down and wrote a final line under the day's notes. Answer calm. Do not bend. Promise kept. When the phone rang again, I let it go to voicemail. His voice filled the machine, small and distant in the device. Last chance, Mom. Sign tonight. After that, it is out of my hands. The lie was obvious. It had always been in his hands and he had chosen pressure. I pressed the button and deleted the message. Then I made tea and sat in Harold's chair, the fabric threadbare where his elbows had rested through the years. I lifted the cup, and in the quiet I could almost hear him. Hold the line, Martha. Hold it steady. I held it, and I slept. In the morning I would take the folder to Elaine Barber. If there was a document anywhere that could speak louder than gossip and louder than David's hunger, I would find it. Until then, I had my answer ready for every knock, call, and rumor that came to my door. My house is mine. My mind is clear. My money is off the table. I arrived at attorney Elaine K. Barber's office on Friday at 9:52 a.m., 8 minutes early. The building sat on the corner of 3rd and Hollowell, brick faded by years, numbers stenciled in white on the glass. 317. I carried my folder marked house protection against my chest the way people carry hymnals. Upright, careful, ready to speak when called. The receptionist, a young man with a neat tie, took my name. At 10:06, Ms. Barber opened the door to the inner office herself. She was in her late 50s, gray hair cut close, glasses on a chain. Her handshake was dry and firm. Ms. Martin, she said. Come in and sit. Start at the beginning and do not spare the dull parts. I placed the folder between us and began. I told her the date my son slid the paper across my table. Monday, May 5th at 4:18 p.m. I told her about the cake on Sunday, May 11th, the notary at the door on Tuesday, May 13th, the text messages saved with timestamps. I handed her each item and named it out loud as I passed it over, the way a nurse names instruments. She listened without interruption, her pen moving in short, precise strokes. When I finished, she pushed her glasses up and said, "You brought facts. That helps." I added one more piece. From my apron pocket I slid Harold's letter. Dated March 14, 1999. She read it all the way through, then read it again. "Your husband was plain," she said. "Plain is good in a courtroom." She turned to her computer and pulled up the county records. Let us begin with title history. Your deed is Book 212, page 84, recorded March 12, 1979. Joint tenancy with right of survivorship, Harold and Martha Martin. I want to see if anything moved after his death. Her fingers worked the keyboard. Date of death. September 3, 2001, I said. Cardiac arrest. She nodded, typed again, and scrolled. Affidavit of survivorship recorded October 8, 2001. Good. Title vested in you alone on that date. She looked at me over the glasses. No transfers out. No liens. Property taxes paid through Q4 2023. She pointed at my printouts. And I see you changed your online tax password Wednesday at 2:40 p.m. after a reset attempt. Yes, I said. IP ending in 44. She smiled without warmth. Good note. She opened a file drawer and pulled out a thin blue binder. Now Ms. Martin, this is going to sound like fortune after a famine, but your husband did more than write a letter. She flipped to a tab labeled Trusts, pre-2005. Our firm kept Harold Martin's file. He came here in 1998 with a union referral. I was an associate then. My senior ran the matter, but I witnessed the signatures. She slid the binder toward me. Read the tabbed page. My hands were steady as I drew the page free. At the top, in clean type, I read, "The Martin Family Residence Trust, dated April 5, 1999. Beneath it, Grantor Harold E. Martin. Trustee Harold E. Martin. Successor Trustee Martha L. Martin. Beneficiaries, Martha L. Martin. Issue of Martha L. Martin by blood." My breath hitched once, then leveled. What does it mean? I asked, though I already felt the shape of it settling into place. It means he placed the house in a revocable trust in 1999, then made it irrevocable on June 14, 2000, the same day you made your final mortgage payment. She tapped a paragraph highlighted in pale yellow. Clause 3. 2. Upon the grantor's death, the trust shall continue for the lifetime benefit of the spouse, Martha L. Martin. Clause 4. 1. The residence shall not be sold, transferred, or encumbered without the written consent of the acting trustee, who, after the grantor's death, is Martha. She turned the page. Clause 6. 4. Definition of issue means lineal descendants by blood only. Spouses are expressly excluded from beneficial interest. I read the sentences twice, lips moving silently over the words. I traced the signatures with my eye. Harold's steady hand, the notary seal with a date I remembered for a different reason. We had celebrated with a supper of buttered noodles because payday was 2 days away. Elaine slid another document forward. This is the trustee's affidavit of successor appointment, executed October 9, 2001, the day after we recorded your survivorship. It states you are the successor trustee, in control of the residence under the trust. It was recorded in the same book, page 91. That is why your property card shows a trust owner name, Martin Family Residence Trust. I stared at her. I never saw this. You did not need to, she said. Your husband set it up to sit quietly unless needed. It is needed now. She printed a current certified copy from the county portal and stamped it on her desk with a date. May 16, 2025, 10:42 a.m. The ink was dark and absolute. Now, she said, about your son. Guardianship threats come cheap. A petition requires verified medical evidence of incapacity. You brought medication lists, utility receipts, clean tax payments, a log of dates and times, and written statements. That reads as capacity. She slid a legal pad between us. Here is what we will do. I will file a notice of trust and affidavit of successor trustee today. It will refresh the record and deter anyone from pretending they can convey the house. I will draft a cease and desist to your son and his wife, and to their law firm Williston and Pike. It will reference Clause 6. 4 and Clause 4. 1. Attach certified copies, and put them on notice that further interference will be treated as tortious. You will sign a do not admit without appointment letter, and we will mail copies certified to them. If they appear with a notary again, you keep the chain on the door and hand them the letter through the gap. We will prepare a declaration of capacity, a simple statement you sign that lists your daily routines, bills you pay, medications you manage, and the numbers you know by heart. Mortgage end date June 14, 2000, Deed Book 212, page 84. Property tax parcel number ending -4372. Small things speak loudly when true. Finally, we will prepare a family notice for your upcoming dinner. You said there is a gathering on Sunday, May 25th, correct? Yes, I said. My niece's birthday. They invited themselves. Good. We will not flee the crowd. We will use it. She paused. Will you be able to read a page aloud without trembling? Yes, I said. I can read a page. She nodded. Then we will write that page. For the next hour she dictated and I approved. The family notice was one sheet, 12-point font, margins clean. It opened with my full name, address, and the words acting trustee of the Martin Family Residence Trust. It stated that the house had been placed in trust on April 5, 1999, made irrevocable June 14, 2000, and that the trust prohibited sale or transfer without my written consent. It quoted Clause 6. For defining beneficiaries as lineal descendants by blood, excluding spouses. It named me as successor trustee as of October 9, 2001. It ended with a sentence in plain language. This house will remain in my control for the remainder of my life, and no person who married into this family is entitled to it. At the bottom, Elaine placed a notary block and had her assistant witness. I signed at 12:03 p.m. The notary seal went on with a firm click. Elaine gathered the set into a manila envelope, wrote my name in block letters and slid it back to me. Keep this within reach of your hand on Sunday. Put an extra copy under the casserole if you like. Paper travels badly when people shout. I allowed myself the smallest smile. I can manage a casserole. She leaned back. A last piece of advice. When they say we only want peace, answer with one line. Do not argue. Do not explain. Just repeat it until the words settle. I waited. She said, your line is, my money is off the table. The house is held in trust. I said it once to feel the weight. My money is off the table. The house is held in trust. We stood. She walked me to the door. Ms. Martin, she said, you are not unnecessary. You are the acting trustee. That has teeth. Outside, the air smelled like rain though the sky was dry. I stopped at the copy shop on Hollowell and made 3 additional certified copies, each stamped 1:18 p.m. I bought a small accordion folder and labeled the pockets. Deed, trust, affidavit, cease and desist, family notice, logs. I tucked Harold's letter into the trust pocket, behind the legal pages. He would have liked that. His words standing quiet behind the law. At home, I set the accordion on the kitchen table and folded a clean dish towel over it as if it were bread cooling. I brewed tea and went to the back porch. The lilacs moved in the light wind. I could almost see Harold at the fence line, hat pushed back, saying measure twice, cut once. He had measured our years twice. He had cut clean. At 3:47 p.m. My phone buzzed. An email from Williston and Pike. We urge immediate cooperation to avoid guardianship filings. 2 minutes later, a second email arrived from my son. Mom, last chance before we go to court. I replied to neither. Instead, I opened my pad and wrote a single line beneath the date May 16th. Trust verified. Evidence in hand. That evening I tested my voice in the kitchen. I read the family notice aloud, the names, the dates, the clauses. My voice did not shake. When I finished, I placed the notice beneath the glass pie plate I would carry to dinner, words facing up. I wrapped the plate in a clean cotton cloth and tied it with twine. Before bed, I took one more walk through the rooms. I touched the chip tile by the sink, the pencil marks in the hall, the arm of Harold's chair worn smooth by years. I stood in the doorway and said the line Elaine gave me, the line that felt like a plank set firm under my feet. My money is off the table. The house is held in trust. On Sunday, May 25th, they would speak first because people like to speak first when they believe they are owed. Then I would open the envelope, lay the paper flat, and let the trust speak in my stead. Not loud, not cruel, just true. I turned out the light and went to bed with the envelope on the nightstand, the notary seal winking faintly in the street lamp glow. Harold's letter lay beneath it, quiet as a hand on my shoulder. The house did not feel fragile anymore. It felt braced. So did I. Sunday, May 25th, I wrapped the pie plate and slid the envelope beneath it. I placed the accordion folder in my bag. Deed trust, affidavit, cease and desist, family notice, logs. At 3:02 p.m. I locked my door and walked the 2 blocks to my niece's house. The lilacs along my fence lifted their scent as I passed. Harold would have liked the timing. Sunday daylight, witnesses. The family was already gathered when I arrived. A long table held coffee, paper napkins, the store cake with pink flowers. Conversation stopped for a beat. Then chairs scraped, voices returned, forced and bright. David came toward me with a grin that did not touch his eyes. His wife hovered half a step behind him, hands folded over a small purse. "Mom," he said loudly, "it is good you are here. We have news that will make things easier for everyone." He glanced around to confirm his audience. "Soon the house will be ours. We met with counsel, and we will make sure you are comfortable." I set the pie plate down, untied the cloth, and lifted the envelope free. I said nothing. I simply laid the family notice on the table and smoothed it with my hand so the light caught the notary seal. "What is that?" my sister asked. "A page," I said. "I will read it," David hissed. "Mom, do not start." I began, my voice steady. "My name is Martha L. Martin of 1142 Ridge, acting trustee of the Martin Family Residence Trust. The residence was placed in trust April 5, 1999, made irrevocable June 14, 2000. Successor trustee appointed October 9, 2001. Clause 4. 1 prohibits any sale, transfer, or encumbrance without the written consent of the acting trustee. Clause 6. 4 defines beneficiaries as lineal descendants by blood only. Spouses are excluded. I looked up. Forks were suspended midair. Someone's chair creaked. My niece's little boy stopped drumming his cup. I continued. This house will remain in my control for the remainder of my life. No person who married into this family is entitled to it. David laughed sharply. This is meaningless. You do not understand the law. I slid the certified copy of the trust across the table. The clerk's stamp read May 16, 2025, 10:42 a.m. I put the deed beside it, Book 212, page 84, and the trustee's affidavit. Paper formed a clean line between us. His wife reached for a page as if it might bite. "Anyone can print documents," she said. "Those are certified," my sister murmured. She pointed to the dark stamps. "You can see the seal." I added the letter I had prepared with Elaine. Cease and desist, interference with trust property. I read the first 2 sentences. You are hereby notified that further attempts to coerce transfer, alter title, or represent authority over 1142 Ridge will be treated as tortious interference. All communications must be in writing to counsel. David's face flushed a hard red. "We will file for guardianship," he said. "You will not be allowed to do this to us." I slid the last page to the front. Declaration of capacity. I pay property taxes quarterly. Parcel ending 4372. I changed my online password Wednesday at 2:40 p.m. After a reset attempt from IP ending 44. Mortgage completed June 14, 2000. Down payment $6,800. Interest 9.25%. If you wish to test me, bring a calendar and a calculator. A low sound went through the room, not quite a gasp. My niece's husband, who installs boilers and speaks only when necessary, said quietly, "Looks in order." David tried a softer tone. "Mom, this is unnecessary." We came in peace. We want what is best for you. I folded the family notice and placed it back in its envelope. My money is off the table, I said. The house is held in trust. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until the words thinned. People are talking. They say you do not trust your own children. I trust documents, I said. They do not gossip. His wife found her voice again. This is cruel. Do you want us homeless? We made plans. You made plans for something that was not yours, I said. Adjust them. Across the table my sister spoke, not to me but to the room. Harold told me in 1999 he was drawing up papers. He called it belt and suspenders. She nodded once at the pages. Belt and suspenders. David's hand hovered over the documents as if to sweep them away. I placed my palm flat on the trust, light but certain. He stopped. We both felt the weight that had nothing to do with paper. Read Clause 6 for aloud, I said. If you would like to continue this discussion, begin with words as they are written. He did not read. He looked at his wife. She stared at the floor. A minute stretched. The cake's frosting shone under the kitchen light, too sweet by half. My niece cleared her throat. It is a birthday. We should sing, she said into the silence. No one moved. David straightened, shoulders tight. We will not forget this, he said. You should remember it, I replied. Dates, clauses, pages. He turned, nearly knocking over a chair, and left the room. His wife followed, color high, eyes wet but dry of tears. The front door opened, then shut too hard. After a beat, the life in the room resumed. Plates moved. Someone cut the cake. My niece's boy resumed drumming. I gathered each document, replaced it in the accordion in its pocket, trust, affidavit, deed, notice, logs, and wiped the table with the edge of a napkin where my palm had left a print. Then I stayed and we sang because it was a birthday and a song is a small decent thing. I walked home just after 5. The light had gone gold. At my fence, the lilacs were a little past bloom, still generous. On the porch, I set the accordion on Harold's chair. Then made tea 1 bag, 3 minutes, a splash of milk. I carried the cup outside and sat where the boards creak in the middle from his weight once upon a time. The street was quiet. A boy on a bicycle coasted by, his shoelace untied. His mother calling after him from half a block away. Far off, a train marked the hour. I held the warm cup and looked at the house we bought in 1979, paid off in 2000, sheltered in 1999, defended in 2025. Sign this, the house is mine now, David had said. The sentence no longer cut. It rang dull and harmless like a tool dropped in the grass. I spoke softly, for the porch and the lilacs and the man who measured twice and cut once. You are still protecting me, Harold. The wind lifted the edge of the doormat. I sipped my tea. The house settled around me the way a hand settles over another. Ordinary, steady, sure. And for the first time in a long while, I felt not necessary or unnecessary, not tested or proved, but simply home. You have heard my story. Now I want to hear yours. What would you have done if you were in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments because I always read them. If this story spoke to you, please like this video and subscribe so we can meet again in the next one. Life is full of untold stories, and together we will bring them to light.